with Alex. This is our first scheduled event, so if you didn't sign in, we'll get your name later. Don't worry about it. It's great that we have this big of attendance tonight. We're really excited to see so much interest in the accounting finance field. We hope that you'll all, if anyone's not on the emailing list, please see me. Make sure you get on it. And we're just really excited to have everyone here on campus tonight. So without further delay, turn it over to Professor West and let you take it away.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. West, and I'm just here to ask questions. I don't have to work too hard. But we do have some panelists here, and what I decided, rather than myself, especially when I thought I was introducing 6 people, I said, rather than me go through their bios, and you may have looked at them, I still would like them to just describe, what was their major, what did their career look like, and then we can get into other careers within their companies, what they would look like, they took a certain path, etc. What you'll find is, for example, in my area of accounting, when you're in public accounting, there's a fairly standard career path you follow. When you're inside a corporation, it can go quite a few different ways. And so I'll let them share their what happens within their entities, if you will, as their turn comes, okay? And what I'd like you to do is gently raise your hand in the corners if you can't hear the panelists, and I'll make sure we speak up if we need that, okay? And we'll hold our questions till the end. And now with less panelists, I think I was expecting, we're not going to have any time for Q&A, but I think we'll have some time for Q&A at the end, okay? And so, again, we'll start it off. They can introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how their careers have gone up to this point.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Does that sound good? Use the mic.
Did you hear it in the far corners? Beautiful.
Okay, great. My name's David Forstrom. I graduated Villanova in 2003. I was a finance major, and they call it MIS, Management Information Systems minor. So my junior year, I interviewed with Merrill Lynch and got an internship for that summer. At the end of that summer, I got a full-time offer. So I joined Merrill Lynch in the summer of '03. And I joined in the CFO department. Oh, I'm from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, by the way. I didn't say that again. So I joined and I'm in the CFO department, the Chief Financial Office. So it's really, the way I always describe it is I do accounting for financial products. So when I started out of school, I went into a rotational program for Merrill Lynch, and you did 2 6-month rotations. I did both of those in their private client wealth management business. So that was basically a fee collection business. So I was responsible for tracking revenues and expenses generated by FAs. Back then, it was for the advisory division, so it was clients that had $500,000 up to $10 million to invest. So all the financial advisors would generate fees off of that client base, and I was responsible for calculating that revenue and seeing how well the FAs were performing or not performing. From there, and that was in Central Jersey, from there I wanted to move to New York. So at the end of my rotations, I interviewed and got a job supporting the investment banking division, specifically equity underwriting. So I did a lot of management reporting for them. When I talk about CFO, I usually split it up between you can do management reporting or you can do legal accounting. Legal accounting is kind of, you're in the nitty-gritty, you're producing the P&L, you're actually working on an individual trade or an individual deal and calculating how much revenue and expense is tied to that deal, and you're booking it to the general ledger. The difference is then for management reporting, you're kind of floating above that. After everything's booked on the general ledger, you're doing historical trend analysis and seeing how the business is performing. So it's kind of 2 different facets from that perspective, but obviously you want to get strong in both, because the more you understand one, the easier it is to understand the other. If you're doing management reporting and you've never booked anything to the ledger, sometimes things don't make sense, but if you've actually produced the numbers that you're looking at, things make a lot more sense. So I did a lot of management reporting for investment banking, then I did some legal accounting for investment banking. And then from there, I went over to, about 5 years ago, to the municipal trading business. So that was in '07, and then obviously '08 and '09 were pretty crazy. Merrill Lynch got bought by Bank of America, saved and bought. So we had to go through a whole merger with Bank of America. So now I'm responsible for the municipal new issuance. I track that business and how much money they're making. I track the municipal secondary trading, and there's also municipal derivatives that I'm responsible for looking at. So that's what I'm doing right now. And some of the other responsibilities are dealing with FASB disclosures each quarter. We have a lot of government regulations that we have to adhere to, so it's a lot of reporting around that. And in a nutshell what I'm doing right now.
Did you get any professional certifications along the way?
Yeah, very early on I did Series 7 and Series 63.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Jane Hess. It's great to be back here at Villanova. I actually had Dr. West as a professor when I was here. I work at Vanguard, which is local, so many of you may have heard of it. I know some of your classes partner closely with Vanguard. We're a large mutual fund company. I would say our primary products are mutual funds as well as ETFs. So I came to Vanguard. I was a finance major at Villanova with an econ minor, and wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to pursue with that combination of a degree. Knew something in business, so I applied for Vanguard's College to Corporate Internship Program. And I started out in their flagship department, which services clients that have $1 million or more in assets on the retail side. And I love my experience there. I was there for 10 weeks. I got to see various facets of the company, and for me that helped validate that was the company that most closely aligned to what I valued in an employer. And so I came back. I ended up interviewing at the end of the summer and got a full-time offer to start through a rotational program similar to Dave. It was a 12-month rotational program with 4 3-month rotations. Through that program, I got licensed with my Series 6 and 63 and had the chance to see a number of areas at Vanguard. So I saw kind of our internal consulting group, which we call the Center for Excellence. I rotated through our defined benefit group, our fund financial services group, which does all the accounting of our mutual funds, and then lastly, our advice services group. So 4 very different areas, 4 very different, really great experiences, which throughout the course of the program, one of the great things about the program is it's exploratory in nature. So you have the chance to kind of explore the investments track, the client-facing track, the sales track, and the leadership track. And for me, the leadership track was really what I was most passionate about. So ended up launching as a leader in Flagship, which is where I had interned, and I managed a team of 10 associates, and those associates are responsible for managing a book of business and reaching out to those clients to talk about products and services and help manage their money, essentially. So I managed a group of 10. I did that for about 3 years before I moved to the position I'm in now, which is very different than the position I was in then. So currently I work in our HR division, and I now manage the rotational programs that I went through, one of the ones I went through. We have a number of them. So my job now, we just brought in 31 new crew, as we call them at Vanguard, in July, and they report to me, and my job is to help manage them, kind of serve as their talent agent throughout the company, help them figure out what it is they want to pursue. Is it the investments track? Do they want to be a trader? Do they want to manage money, economic research? Is it a client-facing role? Do they want to work with large institutional clients or work as a financial planner? Is it the sales role? Do they want to sell our ETF products? Or is it the leadership path? Are they really passionate about coaching and developing others? So those are the 4 tracks of the program that I manage. There are multiple rotational programs similar to that. That's the group I'm in currently. And that's my story in a nutshell.
Great stories. How you doing, guys? My name is Phil Stafiri. I am a manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers here in Philadelphia. For those who are not familiar with what that is, it's one of the big 4 accounting firms. So I am actually the outcast on the panel. I'm not a Villanova alum, so please don't judge me in the audience. I apologize for that in advance. But I was an accounting major, as I said there. I went to a small school in Maryland, Mount St. Mary's University. And when I was a junior, I applied for an internship at PwC and received the internship and was offered a full-time position after my junior year. So my track's a little bit different than these guys, and I actually think it's going to be a really big benefit for everybody sitting in this room, the fact that you're seeing accounting, finance backgrounds, and different paths, so we'll be able to hopefully provide you guys with a diverse perspective. But as far as some of the things that I do, I'm a manager with the firm. I have a CPA, so I know we're talking about certification, so I did sit for that. My first few years at the firm, very difficult exam for anybody who's considering that. But when I was in your shoes, I think one of the misperceptions about accounting was that you sit behind a computer and all you do is crunch numbers. That is very far from the truth as far as what we actually do in the public accounting service. So I'm actually an auditor, and that scares a lot of people when they hear that. But we go out to various clients in various different markets, and we audit their financial statements to make sure everything looks good. What I do in Philadelphia is I specialize in real estate clients. So I have a portfolio of clients here in the area that range from large office real estate investment trusts to small hotels or owner-operators in that space. And I get involved in a lot of things at the firm. There's a lot of benefits that a big public accounting firm can offer that maybe some of the corporations may not have, just as far as size. I mean, we're 150,000 people around the globe and in 150 countries. So there's a lot of opportunities, and I certainly welcome any questions regarding what opportunities they are, but we do a lot of rotations both domestically and internationally, and a very flexible and mobile environment. So I don't know if I missed anything with that intro, but that's pretty much my story as well.
Great. And I'm going to do something a little unusual because some people left the room and one person was unable to make it. Last year when we did this, we had several people that were CFOs from organizations like Verizon and Boeing, and so the typical corporate finance position is actually not represented in this room right now. So I'll say, just briefly, very similar to the rotation programs that have been mentioned. If you go to work for a large corporation, at GE, at J&J, at Boeing, you'll serve in a rotational program where you'll do a variety of things. One, you might work with the financial statements in the general ledger group. If you're at Boeing, you might be actually at one of the plants in doing something like cost accounting. And then you might do another rotation in forecasting and financial planning and analysis. Those are pretty typical rotations at the larger companies. And very similar to what Jane and others have said, after you get done, sometimes it's hard to decide, now where do I want to go? I liked 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3. And so what am I going to do from there? And part of it, I think since Jane alluded to it, I'm going to, in my own mind, how I was going to ask questions, I might change it, because Jane, I think, specifically mentioned how she's a mentor coach. And I'm just going to ask about mentoring, coaching. And part of my point is, B of A is huge. How do you get noticed? And how do you get coached and stuff like that? So maybe, how do you get noticed? How do you get coached? How do you manage your career? Maybe, we could start, would you go in order again? Or Jane, do you want to jump right in and go right ahead, or whatever?
Sure, I can jump in and get us started. So I think there's a few different ways that you can seek out mentorship or seek out what we would call advocates, basically someone that's going to champion for you and help kind of look out for you and have your back as you progress throughout the organization. So one way is to get into a rotational program. That's a fantastic, and I think these guys would echo it if they've gone through a similar program. It provides you with the right forum to immediately start being in a position where you're getting high exposure through your rotations, through the projects you work on. One thing we do is you're aligned with a corporate mentor. So we have a corporate mentorship program. I'm sure many companies do. And the corporate mentorship program allows you to be aligned with a senior officer in the organization. It's a confidential relationship. When you meet, it's to talk about things that are on your mind. It could be to talk about your career progression. It could be to talk about a business project or business idea that you have that you want to throw by someone. So the corporate mentorship program, I would say, is definitely one way, and you'll get it through a formal rotational program. Other ways, I think it's just informal. You'll come across someone that you connect with, and it could be inviting them to coffee, and if you really feel like you connect and hit it off with that person, set up another coffee meeting, and maybe you meet every month, or maybe you meet every 3rd month. And that relationship continues, and you continue to use that person or those few people as a mentor. I think that's how I've seen it happen. So there's informal venues and then formal corporate mentorship programs.
Yeah, I would add some comments and just preface it with the point, and we're all going to hit on the same type of ideas here, but the coaching and mentoring starts now. It starts while you're sitting in these seats right now, is the fact that networking is how we have become successful in our positions and how you do become successful once you get to the other side. So I really encourage everyone to make those relationships and connections now. Ask good questions, get business cards, follow up with people and keep in touch. So I always call it like an informal board of directors that you surround yourself with. So for example, for myself, I would have this informal board that I would have a technical resource, a guy who's really strong in technical stuff. I would have an HR resource, somebody I can go to that would help me with any type of coaching issues or performance issues on my teams. So it starts now. So don't think that you have to wait until you get to the corporate business world to start getting coached or seeking the mentoring and feedback. So I wanted to preface it with that. But for PwC, myself specifically, and what we do as a firm is we do have formal programs in place as well as informally, and I'll touch on both. So formal programs, I mean, even through an internship and when you start as a new hire associate, you would be assigned a peer mentor, somebody who is on a similar level as you that will help you through kind of the day-to-day questions you would have, anything you need. Hey, where is this? How do I do this? How do I record my time? Whatever it may be. And then you're also assigned a career coach. So that would be a manager at the firm. So for example, I have 5 career coachees, and we meet very regularly. We try to meet at least once a month to talk about where they are in their career, the jobs that they're assigned to, what their ambitions are, what they're trying to get exposure to, and I work with them directly on what can we do to position you in a way that you're going to be the most successful and get the ratings that you want in a year and get the best reviews. So that, and then on top of that, you have your relationship partner. So a partner at the firm would also be there to bounce ideas off of, and that's the person who kind of sits on top and goes through with you your annual performance, your compensation, your bonuses. That's always a pretty nice discussion to have with the partner at the end of the year. But it gives you some really good exposure to different levels at the firm, so you're getting exposure formally with associates, senior associates, managers, and partners, all just through this formal coaching and mentoring programs that are offered. And then kind of echoing what I was saying earlier was informally, people kind of connect and they get out there and they say, I have a lot in common with this particular individual. I'm going to reach out to them and seek out coaching and feedback. But I would say to be successful in the positions that we're in, you really have to proactively seek out coaching and mentoring outside of just the formal stuff that you're going to get regularly, whether it's quarterly or monthly, whatever it may be. But I think that's something to keep in mind as you guys pursue whatever opportunities you're pursuing.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. There are formal programs at B of A as well, especially geared towards recent college grads. I was a mentor over the summer to one of our programs called FMAP, so one of our FMAP interns. I was the mentor. And then even beyond the college, once you get out, I can find a mentor that's a couple years older than me. So the CFO division still fosters that. But more than anything, I think it's that informal, personal stuff. You're going to meet, because as big as these corporations are, B of A is enormous. My immediate group, there's 9 of us, and we're pretty close-knit. We've been together for a while. So everything still comes down to you're with a person and there's relationship there. I mean, the manager I'm working with now, I really like the guy. I've been with him for a long time. And you'll see, in the finance industry, people switch, they jump from one bank to another, and they bring people with them. I had these 3 guys that were working for me, and I'm going to bring them with me. So it's really about creating those relationships. I mean, I've had managers that I didn't like in the past, and I didn't really keep in touch with them. So that's, but once you make a connection with someone, really try to foster that and keep it going.
You'd be very surprised because all 3 of the organizations that we work for are enormous, very big companies. And sometimes sitting in your shoes, you may be overwhelmed, like, oh, wow, this company has 100,000 employees. I'm just going to be a number. And you'll see very quickly when you get into the situation that that's not how it is. And you really do connect those close friendships, and you make those really good relationships very quickly. And you stick with them for your career.
Every group I've been in has been less than 10 people. So it is a massive place, but you're in this close-knit group of people. It's kind of, at our company, it's called the director level. And every director has their own little group, and we all know each other within that. And then above them, it kind of gets into the massive, faceless kind of, people. But at our level, it's really close-knit, as big as these places are.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, Bill, you mentioned being proactive, so I'm just going to say, one time we had an accounting society meeting, and we had a headhunter come in. And his first question was, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? And it was a great question for college students who are really focused on their first job, And so I'm just going to say, you guys are a little bit on in your careers, but do you have like a 5-year plan now? Is this something you're always working on, either personally or with a mentor?
I'll take it, yeah. As far as kind of my career planning, I think as soon as I stepped foot into PwC as even an intern, I knew that was the field for me. I'm very people-oriented, and I get to work in teams on a daily basis. I have that competitive nature about myself. I played sports in college, so I didn't realize that was what it was going to offer me when I stepped foot in the door at the firm. So I knew pretty quickly this is a place that fits everything I'm looking for. I have a lot of good people around me and a lot of good support around me. So I'd say if I had to answer what my 5 or 10-year plan is, even I'm not going anywhere. I've kind of had those discussions and kind of echoing the proactivity. I've sat down with my relationship partners and other partners that I have in the group, and we've kind of mapped out a game plan for my career path, whether it's going to be a partner in X amount of years or however long it's going to take to get there. But my goal is to stay there. My ambition is to be a partner at the firm, and hopefully nothing will detract that from getting there. So.
Yeah, I would say similarly. I have personal goals in terms of where I see myself in the organization. I would say it's within general management. So one thing Vanguard really values is to get to the senior level ranks, you have to have the ability to think strategically and think critically. But I think another really important component is you have to be a good people leader. You have to be a good boss. You have to be someone people want to work for. And you have to be able to develop others. And for me, I think the combination of those two things, thinking strategically about the business, driving it forward, and then rising up to have even greater impact and greater span of control of your leadership team is something that I aspire to. One thing I'll say that's great about Vanguard and something that attracted me there and about a lot of other firms, I'm sure, is many people end up changing careers within the same company. So what I mean by that is I was in a finance group, kind of a private wealth management group. I moved to HR, totally unrelated field, very different, but had the opportunity to do that internally. So the same goes for, we have a legal division, we have an international division, we have a marketing and communications division, we have a public relations group, we have an accounting team. So I think at a lot of big corporations you'll find the opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself internally. And if you have that opportunity, I think that's one I've already taken advantage of for moving from being in a place where I was using my finance background to moving in a place where I'm still using it in a different way. So for me, that's one thing I look forward to, is to continue to reinvent myself at the same company because that opportunity is provided.
My career path so far has been, started out obviously as a junior level, and then you kind of hit a ceiling in a different group, and then you can jump to another group. So I've kind of, each group I've been in, I've been waiting until I look around and be like, okay, I think I'm plateauing a little bit. I think I'm kind of hitting that ceiling. And then you based on your networks, you say, talk to people that you trust, people that are a couple years older than yourself, and just say, where do you think, who should I talk to? What's a good group to go interview with and go talk to? So again, it comes down to that personal relationship. I don't have any strict year plan for the future. Things have been a little, it's not as easy to jump around as it once was before the 08, 09 events. It's been kind of tight since then. But there's still a lot of opportunities out there. So I think for me personally, you just stay as flexible as possible. You just try to keep your eyes open all the time. You meet a lot of people that just get a job and they like it and they want to stay there and they put their head down and they have blinders on and they say, this is all I want to do. So I would really advise against doing something like that. Just keep your eyes open and talk to people all the time, because a lot of it comes down to luck and timing. Somebody might quit another group near you, and your group has a little bit of an excess, and you can jump over to that group. So you just always have to keep your eyes open and pay attention to what's going on around you, especially with these large companies. There's a lot of different jobs.
Yeah, I would agree. You're doing a disservice to yourself if you're not taking advantage of the opportunities that are around you. You're going to see them all the time when you're at your companies that you're working for. I mean, we've seen opportunities, we've taken them, and that's what's put us in the position that we're in now. It's something that you always have to keep an eye out for in any realm of life, but certainly once you're on the other side. I would agree.
One thing I would just add, one other thing that we didn't touch on, which is to continue to focus on developing yourself and continuing to learn. I think being a tenacious learner is such an important component of growing and progressing your career. So what I mean by that is go back for your MBA, go back to grad school for something you're passionate about, pursue your CFA designation, pursue your CPA, constantly be a learner. I think that's a really important component of anyone's tenure plan to progress.
Yeah, you don't want to become stagnant, you want to continuously improve. I agree.
Well, because they talked about learning, I'd just say, is training a big part of the learning, or is it mostly learning on the job or from your informal small networks? And do you feel like whatever it is, are you staying current in whatever your fields might be through the training and other things?
Yeah, I would say for us, for PwC, the training programs, we're known for being very top. I think we're top 10 in training for big corporations or big companies. So we have very frequent formal training sessions to keep you up to speed on the technical accounting things, the audit quality type things are coming down. We're also very regulated, just like the banks and other financial institutions. So we have to constantly keep up with the new standards and the new documentation requirements and such. So we're in training all the time. So we do it when we have our new hires that come in. They do a 2-week training session, pretty intense training. I'd say a lot of the learning would come from the formal training sessions. I'd say the majority of the learning, at least from my personal experience and conversations I've had with many people I work with, come from the on-the-job learning. I learned more in the first 6 months of my career than I think I learned in college, and that's something that I didn't actually expect. It was pretty overwhelming to a point where I said, wow, I didn't realize that I had this much to learn. And I think one of the things that's kept me where I am and kept me happy in my career path so far has been that I've learned something new every single day. And that's a really big deal to me. It keeps me fresh, it keeps me energized. I always say I come in with a plan. I'm going to do these 10 things in a particular day, and I end up not doing those 10 things and doing another 15 or 20 different things. So it's very flexible, like he was referring to, and I would say that I learn so much on a daily basis that it keeps it very motivating, I think.
For me personally, so Vanguard has something called Vanguard University, which I call Villanova University, VU. They call it VU for the first 2 months. So Vanguard University is actually an entire department and an entire building that's dedicated to learning and development. So the classes vary from technical classes, Excel, Access, how do you write a macro, VBA, all sorts of technical classes, to classes like influencing and persuading others, presentation skills, crucial conversations, leadership classes. So they really run the gamut. So I would say I try and leverage the Vanguard University as much as possible because their courses are great. They're instructor-led in-classroom courses. They also have e-learnings as well. So for me, that's been huge. You can sign up for as many or as few classes as you like. And then I would say I really leverage my network. So my peer group, we meet a lot to talk about industry news. We, as a team, the team I manage, the 30 recent college grads, we come together every other week and 2 people lead a discussion on an industry topic. And every week it's a great forum to learn and share what you know. And then passing around articles, that happens all the time. That's a great way to stay current. So for me, that's how I've done it.
Yeah, we have a similar, I can't remember the name of it, but it's Bank of America University. But it's a website with multiple webinars. There's some stuff that's required training. There's government requirements that employees have to be aware of. There's money laundering tests that we have to take. But there's also a million different courses on the market, different accounting courses. What are the government laws that are coming down that are going to change? There's a whole group that sets up these webinars that you can go and watch on your own. But for me, it's been on the job learning. Like Bill said, that first 6 months you learn a ton. And that's something when I interview college kids, and when you get that first job, really take advantage of not being expected to know anything. Because you might, I felt overwhelmed, and I said, oh my God, like, I have to know this, and if I don't get my debits and credits right, they're going to fire me. But they really, unless you get some horrible manager, but they really don't expect you to know everything, and take advantage of that. Ask a million questions, because I have 10 years experience. If I walk in and ask, they expect me to know certain things, but a college kid that just started, they really don't expect, they expect you to have a level of intelligence, but, for specific things, ask a ton of questions, take advantage of that. Like when I see someone that joins our group and they're younger and they're pretty quiet, and even if they're getting something that they're working on, but they're not asking follow-up questions on it, I kind of elbow them to say, hey, really take advantage of this, because once you get a couple years in, that's something you lose. Then there's a level of expectation. Once you switch companies and you have on your resume 4 years of experience, you can't ask those questions that you can when you're first out. So I always tell kids to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's my biggest worry when guys on my team or girls on my team are not asking questions. That makes me worry the most. So when and that's a hesitation for a lot of people that come out of college and start as a new associate or an intern. They're scared that if they ask a lot of questions, they may come off as, I'm stupid. Somebody's judging you, but it's not the case. I really do worry when I'm not getting asked questions a lot, because it reinforces the fact that you want to learn, that you actually understand what you're doing. So I encourage the same as that thing. I think that was a great point.
Yeah, when you get silence from a kid, you don't know.
Not
it's just like they might be great, they might not be. If they're asking questions, then they're interested.
You guys are doing a very good job of changing the order of my questions. So I'm going to follow up here and just say,
keep you on your toes.
What can we do better at Villanova? And if you don't want to say, you don't want to point the blame on us, what would you have liked to have known a little bit better going into your job? I mean, again, questions are totally legit, but could you have learned more about Excel, or could you have learned more about something technical in your field? Is there anything that we can do? Could you have learned how to write better, present? Are there any things that we maybe should emphasize a little bit more, or?
That sounds like a Villanova specific question. I'm going to refer that to you guys first.
I think kids have told me in interviews you guys have a Bloomberg lab now.
Yes.
So I think that's awesome. That wasn't here when I was here. You guys should join that, go to that, learn it, because Bloomberg's everywhere in the financial industry. I think one of our other panelists works with Bloomberg. So I'd say I wish that was here when I was here. But other than that, maybe just the structure of an organization, have a professional really lay out. Because you start talking, and I'm kind of talking from a bank perspective, but I had no idea how many individual groups were in a bank when I first started. I mean, I was in the CFO division, but then I'm getting calls from market risk, credit risk, and just all these different groups. And I think I took a financial institutions class, but I think they just kind of talked about what banks did for clients.
Okay.
But there's all this internal groups behind that where there's a lot of jobs. So maybe just kind of a professional willing to just lay out the exact groups within a bank, kind of talk about what they do. Just that would help.
A lot of the technical skills can be, if you have the aptitude to learn them, you can learn the technical skills. I would say what I think would be most helpful would be the soft skills. So how do you facilitate a meeting when you're the most junior person in the room? How do you influence and persuade others? How do you have a discussion that's a pretty crucial conversation? Maybe it's with your boss, maybe it's with a colleague, where emotions are high and stakes are high. I think things like that you don't learn in the classroom. You may learn through your project work as you work with each other and have projects where you come together. So take advantage of that opportunity to step up as a leader of the team, try and influence and persuade others. I think that's where you really develop the soft skills piece.
Yeah, I think universities have responded to kind of the needs of what the employers are looking for out there. I think things exactly like this, panels, they didn't do panels when I was a year two.
Yeah.
So this is a big benefit to you guys, I think, is just getting perspectives on what it really is like at the companies that we work for. I never had that, so like I said, I thought auditing was crunching numbers and sitting at a computer every day and people hating me. That's what I thought auditing was all about when I was in college, right? And it's completely not like that. And I wish I would have had industry professionals out there that would have shared that with me, just so I would have had a little bit more excitement going into the career path. But I would totally agree with the soft skills. I think working together in teams, which I'm sure you're doing very frequently here, it's something that you should really take a lot from.
Yeah.
Taking the opportunity to step up as a leader, just like you said, that's exactly what I do on a daily basis. So I lead my teams, but then also the senior associates on my teams are leading the teams as well. So it's really teamwork, and that's such a key to success out in the business world. So I would say that's a couple things to think about.
I'm going to stay with the teams because we've tried to get more interdisciplinary at Villanova. We're trying to, combine marketing and management, a little accounting, do a couple things like that. But do you find that your teams are interdisciplinary and it's good to have some feel for other things other than financial knowledge? Do you find yourself working on those kinds of teams? And did that happen early in your career when you were doing those types of things?
Yeah, I can start this up.
Yeah, sure.
I would say for PwC, so we have an assurance practice, which is our audit practice. We also have tax services and our advisory consulting practice. So the teams that I'm on are what we call like cross lines of service teams. So I'm working on a daily basis with tax professionals, tax specialists, also working with some of our consultants and specialists. So it's not that I go to work every day and work with the same 4 people that are just auditors and that's all I'm getting. I'm working with different lines of service. So I would say exactly what we're talking about here is they're coming from different backgrounds, different perspectives. I think that's why we're so successful in what we do, is that the teams that we build are not just blinded into one way of thinking. It's bringing a bunch of different perspectives and different backgrounds and life experience into the mix is why our brainstorming sessions are end up being so successful. So yeah, I work with people from all across the firm all the time, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most is not only making those connections, but just getting different perspectives when you sit back and say like, wow, I never thought about that when I was thinking through this issue. So I think there's a lot of benefits come from that. I think it's great if that's what you're doing, or trying to do.
Yeah, I'd agree. So I'd even say From an HR perspective, when we recruit, it's something we really look for. People that have a diversity of experience. So even recruiting it, so we're a financial services firm. We recruit English majors. We recruit people with a variety of backgrounds. So you don't need to only be focused in business to work there. But we would encourage it. So any team we work on, it's about how can you leverage the strengths of each individual to make the team function stronger. So it's something that is very, very highly encouraged. And diversity perspective, I think the best ideas come from a diverse group. So it's something we practice and we actively hire for.
Yeah, I would echo everything. At the core, it's finance and accounting, but there's so many other things, so many other requests we get from across the bank. You need to learn those other skills. So I echo everything you guys said.
And since my wife is controller of a medical device company, I can say she's on meetings with every group in the company. R&D, she meets with them all the time, and she's the product teams and stuff like that. So she's in too many meetings, she will say, but they're always represented by 5 different divisions in the company and 5 different departments and that kind of thing. So, are you looking for people to get certifications or get master's degrees to move ahead? And if you don't mind, you may have mentioned a couple of your Series 7, Series 63. They might not know. Some people might be freshmen and sophomore. Maybe you can tell. They probably have heard of the CPA. Yeah. They might not even know that in some cases. But are you encouraged to get those, and does that help you move ahead? Any of those master's degrees, certifications, etc.
So I would say we do encourage it if it's the right fit for you, depending on what your track is. So I mentioned there's a number of different opportunities within Vanguard specifically. So if you're in the investments track, if you're going to be a trader, you're going to work in our investment strategy group and come up with our thought leadership on the markets and the economy, a CFA would be helpful in a group like that. So a CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst, the CFP, Certified Financial Planner, both of those designations we offer and we encourage people to go back for. It's something we fully support as an organization, as well as an MBA. So many companies have academic assistance programs. I know we do, where we'll offer a certain amount for you to go back to school. We have a really strong partnership with Villanova, actually. Many people come back here or get sponsored full-time to go back somewhere else. So I would say it won't limit you, it will only make you stronger, and it will show that tenacity for learning that's really important.
Yeah, I've had the Series 7 and the 63. The 63 is real estate focused, and the Series 7 is something that FAs have to take. It gets very much into different states' laws and how you're supposed to interact with clients. I've actually never used them in my career. I had the opportunity to take them, so I did. I have them on my resume and I keep them current, but I've never actually used them. The degrees that I've seen much more in my actual career path, I didn't pursue them, but are CFA, MBA, and CPA. A lot of CFA, a lot of people in my career, people that do what I do, go after the CFA. And then the MBA, I've never done one, but what I've always heard is it's not so much the education. Obviously, you're going to get a great education, but it's really the connections that you make, the people. The alumni groups are very tight-knit. I know a lot of people do the NYU MBA. They say that the connections are just amazing. So I've always heard from a technical perspective, CFA is a great one, and then from a networking perspective, the MBAs are really they're huge advantage.
So a little bit different from our side. So if you're coming into PwC or any of the other Big Four accounting firms as an accounting major and starting your career as an accountant, you're going to be required to get your CPA if you want to advance. So you need, at PwC specifically, you need your CPA to be promoted to senior associate. That's typically a 2 to 3 year promotion. And without that, you are unable to get promoted. So I would say that limits you a little bit, obviously. And what we see a lot of times is people who struggle with that exam, they're not going to stay at the firm much past 2 to 3 years because they're not going to be able to get promoted from that. I would say from an MBA perspective, certainly something that we encourage people to get, but it's not something that I would say is anywhere close to being required or necessarily advances you within the actual firm. I'd say the MBA, I've heard the same exact thing. I don't have one. I've thought about it before, but I think the networking is a big benefit from the MBA. I know it has benefited people that I've known personally that have a CPA on a resume plus an MBA and getting opportunities out there in the industry. So, but from a Big Four accounting firm, I do know a fair amount of partners who have their MBAs, that they're also required to have their CPAs, obviously. But a lot of them have their MBAs, but a lot of them don't. So you don't need that to advance yourself in the career of public accounting.
This is a really difficult question to answer and maybe ask even. I'm trying to give folks that haven't worked yet or haven't interned yet, like what's a typical day or month or quarter? I mean, because every day might be different, but maybe your months are similar, maybe your quarter. And I don't know, without going into incredible detail, is there some, I don't know, we've hit a lot of things that you do already, but is there something you'd like to add on, here's a typical type of thing we do or something, then please add it.
I would love to start this one because I know the public accounting world has a bad reputation for having no work-life balance, working a ton of hours, busy seasons are hell, et cetera, and the list probably goes on for another 100 things. But one of the experiences I've had, and I want to give, maybe I'll start high level and go into a little more detail on some of the things we do now, but we do have what we call a busy season, right? It's typically around, depending on your clients that you have, their year ends, most of them being 12/31. So I would say that the winter time, maybe the January through March timeframe is definitely the busiest time for me personally. And by busy, I don't mean working 24 hours a day. It's typically, what I would say my typical work day at that time of year is probably, show up at work at 8:30 to 9 o'clock, normal arrival time, and then anywhere between 8:30, 9 o'clock at night sometimes, in the worst times, is when we're getting out of there. But what we've really tried to do, and this is coming from the top of the firm and the firm leadership, is really move towards more of a flexible type work arrangement and a lot more mobility focused. So what we do as auditors is we go out to a bunch of our clients and we have laptop computers, and then our clients pack up and leave at 5:30 and go home and enjoy their lives. So somebody at the top of the chains got smart one day and said, why are we sitting at our clients until 10 o'clock at night when they're out of there at 5:30 in the afternoon? So we started implementing a little bit more of a flexible and more mobile environment where there's a lot of times where we're leaving at 6:30, going home, going to the gym, having dinner, whatever kind of makes you happy in your life, and then just wrapping up some work from home from the couch, watching ESPN or whatever keeps you happy. But I think that's the busiest time of year. I'd say the worst case scenario would be that you're headed home and you're doing some work from home, and the best case scenario being the summer times typically when it's a little bit slower, which is a great time for it to be slow. We have programs in place where we have off on Fridays. They're called Flex Fridays. The firm across the board typically does not work on Fridays. You get your 40 hours in Monday to Thursday and you're kind of free to go on Fridays. It's a pretty sweet perk. People head down to the shore and they enjoy themselves. And that's something that keeps people motivated through the busier times, saying, okay, if I just get through the next few months, I will hit the slower times and be able to actually enjoy a lot of things I want to do. So that's a lot different than when I started at the firm. I started at the firm 7 years ago, and I came in and it was very busy, and I said, I don't know if this is what I should have gotten myself into. And it was overwhelming, and I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. But I think the strides that have been made have been significant. And I think we were talking even before the panel about some of the things that these guys are doing at their companies as well. I think what you're seeing, and this may be from the generation, from you guys, so I thank you for that, that there's a shift in how people work. So it's not work more, it's work smarter, and how can you be more efficient, but also take advantage of the fact that we do have lives outside of work, and that's something that is really important to us. So each of us, I'm sure, has our own idea of what work-life balance really means. So something that's important to me might not be important to them, but that doesn't mean to say that what I do is more important or not. So it's come together as a team, have the discussions, and figure out what works best for that particular team, and you just structure it that way. So a lot of the teams that work for me are working from home, could be a couple days a week, even through some of the busier times, but certainly during the summer, and really taking advantage of that. And that's what keeps a lot of people going, so you don't burn out. Because if you work that long throughout the whole entire year, there's no way you're surviving. So hopefully that answers it. I just wanted to put it out there about public accounting having a bad reputation. I wanted to fix that for everybody.
I think it's a typical day. So I would say, at the most general level, a typical day, if you were in an internship program at Vanguard or in a rotational program, you would be given some sort of project, typically a business case, a business problem, and you'd be supported by resources, and you'd be asked to come to learn about it and then come to the table with solutions or recommendations. So at the conclusion of every rotation or every internship, there's a readout where by this point you've kind of practiced your presentation and gone through your ideas and recommendations with a few of your resources, but you read out essentially on, hey, here's what I'm recommending, here's what I think the right solution is for this business problem. So at the highest level, most internships and rotations, the business problem itself could be very different depending on where your internship is, where your rotation is. But at the highest level, that's generally what it is.
Yeah, in my career, our core functions are really making sure each month end that the balance sheet and P&L flows correctly. There's a lot of other things to do, but that's the core. If we get that wrong, everything else is going to be screwed up, because all our projects are based off of those numbers. So each month end is very busy for us. The first week of each month, generally staying late at least 2 nights or something like that. Quarter ends are very busy because on top of closing the month, you have to do a lot of quarterly disclosures that go out to FASB, different government requests. It seems like every quarter the government, FINRA, the SEC, or the Fed has some new request that they want to look at the numbers in a different way, and you have to figure out how can we present it to them. In my specific group, in the municipal business, we have a lot of different municipal products, and they're supported by a lot of different technical systems, some of which are antiquated and some are better than others. So a lot of times you're fighting with the system to give you the answer you need, and it can get a little tricky. So you have to be pretty creative with that to fulfill some of these government requests. So month ends and quarter ends are definitely busy. Intra-month, as we call it, we're right now in the middle of the month. Right now, for instance, you can kind of focus on your projects, so you can manage your time a little bit more. It could always get blown up by some senior manager asking for a request, or government bodies come in the middle of the month. But for the most part, within the month, you can manage your time. Junior people that start generally get established projects, either a daily task or a monthly task, and then the managers will kind of deal with the new. If the Muni desk creates a new product, we have to go figure out, well, which legal entity are we allowed to put it on? What system can they trade in? It's a brand new product, so you have to kind of determine some of that. So those are more the project types, and then you set up a process that you could hand off to someone more junior, and they could work on it on a daily or monthly task. So it's a good mix of structured tasks and then project work in the middle of the month.
I'm just going to reiterate, because maybe you've had a summer job where you've had to look busy, and it's a hard job. In fact, I have a student in my FMR who works at something really famous in New York City. And it's something you think would be a great job, and she goes, everybody there was playing solitaire all day. And that would just be a horrendous experience. I mean, if you have to work for something like that. And the thing is, they don't want to leave sometimes because they're making good money. But there's no worth. Work, you can tell that these people are excited about what they do and the companies they work for. And I think we got an idea, today about managing your career. And it takes an effort on your part, but also reach out to some mentors and stuff like that. I mean, as far as my main questions, as far as I'm concerned, we've really hit a lot of good things, and I'm ready to open it up to questions if you guys have some based on some of the things you've heard. Yes?
So Bill, a lot of people that go over China is over banking, or they go to like one of their clients to get a better paying job. What was something that motivated you to stay in public accounting, or did you keep going temporarily kind of to the future coming up?
That's a great question. I think, and I see it all the time, we do have a lot of people that have worked with me, for me, throughout my career that have jumped to the other side, either to a client or to another industry. And I think one of the things that keeps me here is just the people that I'm surrounded by. It motivates me on a daily basis. Just what you guys are seeing now is a lot of people in this room probably doing very well in school, surrounded by other people who are doing very well in school. When you get into a firm like PwC, one of the things I always use as an example is, you're coming in, they hire, or we hire very, very top talent people, and then you're surrounded by a lot of other people who are very, very smart and also top of their class type people. It really challenges you to step outside of your comfort zone. It really challenges you to be creative in how you can stand out, and you'd be surprised at the levels you can perform at when you're actually pushed, and not in a negative way at all, by competition around you. And I think that's an environment that I've really enjoyed. I've enjoyed being surrounded by some of the smartest people, some of the most driven and motivated people I've ever met. And just a lot of the opportunities that I get outside of the client work is what keeps me at PwC. So what I'm involved in outside of things like this, which I love to do. I do a lot of recruiting internally at the firm. I do a lot of community service projects and leadership programs, and I get to travel around the country and teach some of those programs, which is really, really cool. And I've met a ton of people through those efforts. But to me, I have everything that I dreamed of having in my life, and it's not just accounting and serving clients. It's a lot of things outside of doing the client service and helping people not only in the community but helping people through various different programs that really fulfills kind of everything I always wanted. So I can never picture going to the other side and getting a higher paying job or something that's a little bit more structured as far as like a 9 to 5 or something like that, which a lot of people do. But me, I kind of have longer term career ambitions, and I know that my time will come that'll certainly pay off, hopefully, for the hard work I put in now. But there's just so many different opportunities out there, and it's not just going out to clients every day and auditing. It's so many opportunities outside of that really keep me there, and coupled with the fact that the people I work with are so intelligent and so hardworking that it just motivates me to be even better. Hopefully that answers.
Yes.
What do you guys think sets you apart from the other people you're competing with to get to the jobs that you are today versus everyone kind of so stuck in the corporate ladder?
So you're saying once you're in a corporation or in your shoes as a college student, what's it?
Yeah, once you guys get into a corporation.
Is it why are we so much better than everybody else we work with?
Sure, good.
I mean, there's a lot of great people that work in the company. It's a little tricky, but I think, just keeping your eyes open, talking to people, staying flexible, and the learning thing. You can never stop learning. Like I said, you'll meet people that put those blinders on and say, okay, I learned this task, I'm going to collect a paycheck and get paid for this. But that's just, in my opinion, that's a negative attitude. Some people just want that steady career and don't really want to grow. But if you show a willingness to learn and take on new tasks, the other thing is once you become, I manage a few people, once you become a manager, another thing I would recommend is when you're a manager and someone works for you that really takes ownership of what they're doing, and if it gets screwed up, they care about it. You can see that they care about it, and they don't want it to get screwed up. They want the past to be fixed. So we talk about ownership a lot in our group. If someone says, oh, they took ownership of this and pushed it across the goal line, and I really didn't have to worry about it. I checked in with them. But and then if you have someone that works for you that kind of hits their first speed bump and they just throw up their hands, or they don't even come to you and tell you that they have a problem. So, people that take ownership of things, that's a big, sometimes, and it's hard to take ownership, because sometimes you're taking ownership of a project that doesn't have great funding, or, there's some high up manager in another group that doesn't really agree with the project's direction. But if you take ownership of things and execute on them, that really stands out. And then once you become a manager and see people do that for you, it makes your life 10 times easier, because you don't have to worry about that. It's almost like an anchor when you're a manager. But if you have someone that's great working on something, so if you really care about things and own them and finish them, I think that's helped me a lot.
If I could I echo? I mean, my wife's the vice president controller of a company. She loves the person David just described. I mean, people that take ownership and go a little bit extra so she doesn't have to answer every question and stuff like that. It's just unbelievably good. Self-starters that try to make things happen. It's an incredibly important skill and gift to have.
Yeah, so that's a great transition to what I was going to say. I think someone once gave me advice at some point during my 5 years at Vanguard. Think about how you can make your boss's life easier. So to that point, is there something you can take on? Can you stretch yourself a little bit more and take on an additional task or additional responsibility? Not being afraid to offering a dissenting opinion, I think, is really important. So not just being a, yes, I agree with that idea, but being able to say, hey, I don't really see the value in doing it that way. Have we thought about this, or have we considered this way? I think people really appreciate someone that is young in their career but has the managerial courage to kind of offer a dissenting opinion appropriately, of course, as you position it. And then once you move to the leadership ranks, I would just say being a great leader, being someone that develops others, that reputation will follow you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one thing to keep in mind is that everybody in this room, you guys, each of you are unique. That's going to carry right over to the professional world. You're surrounded by a lot of people that nobody is just like you. You have to find ways to differentiate yourself above and beyond that. So it's really being proactive, seeking out additional opportunities. One of the biggest things I think that has helped me in my own career has been the ability to receive constructive criticism and feedback. A lot of people struggle with that. And I took that as a positive thing when I was young in my career, saying, well, nobody's perfect. You're not going to get something right every single time. So I really try to take that feedback and incorporate that into my future performance and beyond that. So that's something that I think was a big thing for me when I started my career, in the younger stages for sure. And as you advance through, you kind of learn different styles from different people you work with and how you run teams. I think now I have various teams that report to me. I think one of the things is really taking care of your people, is making sure you really care about them and help them advance themselves and develop. And that's through coaching, and that's just through making sure you reward them if they worked hard for you for the past week to get a report out the door, something like that. But really taking care of that, and kind of what I was saying a couple minutes ago about getting involved. I love to get involved in a lot of different things because I'm very passionate about getting involved in a lot of things. But it's given me the ability to network and meet people across the organization that I think that helps you when it comes time for advancement and different opportunities. Because somebody that has an opportunity for, hey, there's a project we have going on in another city. Oh, I remember working with Bill back on this project. I think we should offer that to him. That comes from networking. That doesn't come from having your name on a list somewhere. That comes from knowing people. So it's a lot about connections.
Yes.
My question's actually pretty specific. It's about internal auditing, so of course answer to the best of your ability. But I know that various companies and partnerships have different, I guess, prerequisites that they require of the potential employees to have before they take them on into that department. To your knowledge, do your companies or firms have such requirements? And if they are, what are the most common ones?
For an internal audit, that was your question, right?
At Bank of America, internal audit actually rolls up the CFO, the Chief Financial Office. I think that Alexandria, they're at that program, she graduated from Nova, but I think that can be one of the rotations that the FMAPs go through, isn't it? Internal audit?
No, FMAP, it's pretty specifically finance. They do open it up to corporate treasury.
Oh, okay.
But not internal audit.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking more Merrill, back in the Merrill days, but I don't think there was any specific requirements that they would.
Can I step in? I'm the director of internal audit at Merck, and so we look for people who come from the Big Four. We want them to have 2 or 3 years at one of the Big Four firms. Hopefully they've gotten their CPA, and then we'll bring them in. So our internal audit group, we're hiring all the time, but we're looking for Big Four experience, hopefully with the CPA.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. A lot of the people that I've worked with, the ones that have made moves to other organizations, a lot of them are going to internal audit roles at various different companies, coming from 2 to 3 years of being in one of the Big Four.
Thank you.
Yes.
What about like the mid-sized public accounting firms? Isn't it a little harder as compared to the Big Four?
Harder in what sense? You said, is it harder or?
Kind of get hired for internal audit as opposed to
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we could defer that back to the director of internal audit at Merck.
Yeah, no, we also look at what we call second tier. We look for people with good experience, but we especially want them to have a CPA.
That's a nice thing about when you get out. If you get your CFA or you get your CPA, it's like, low. Who cares where you graduated from? It's proof you know your stuff. You get your Series 7, you know your stuff.
I would agree
And
with that.
so that's sort of nice. It's a nice equalizer, and then just show that you can do the work. That's great.
I will add just a real short plug here for anybody that's an accounting major in the room. The CPA exam is not an easy exam. I would encourage you, when you do reach the point of starting to study and starting to think about taking that, get it done early. It gets harder as you advance through your career, as you become more responsible and you're running teams and just have more on your plate. It just becomes a little bit more difficult. So what we're seeing now is a lot of the new hires coming in with a couple sections passed a lot, or sometimes even completely passed. But when I started 7 years ago, that was not something that was discussed. That was not something that was pushed. So we were challenged with getting our exam through the times where we were busy and getting more responsibility. So something that you want to think about as you're reaching that point of graduation, something you want to start doing pretty short after, if you can.
I mean, because one of the questions said, we hire people from outside. I'm just going to ask these panelists, do you promote from within? I mean, to middle manager, directors, and above, do you go outside and get talent, or do you like what you have inside your own shop, if you will?
I would say there's a strong focus on promoting from within. We do recruit recent college grads into many of the positions, but once you kind of get your foot in the door, some of our more senior positions, there's a focus on promoting within, for sure, absolutely. It's a big focus.
Yeah, middle management, from what I've seen, is almost always from within. Sometimes at the higher levels, you see the big banks poaching from one another. And the CFO, people that report directly to the CFO. But people that I report to in middle management is almost always from within.
Yeah, I would say
a specific relationship that someone has that they came with another company.
Agreed. I would say across the clients that I've seen and the exposure I've had to different clients, most of the promotion is definitely within. That's certainly the first step or first choice for that. And then we're a little bit different as a public accounting firm. We have a pretty structured promotion schedule. So it's 2 to 3 years as a senior, another 3 to manager, another 3 to senior manager, and then could be 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 years to hopefully make it to the partnership if you're fortunate enough and you have the skill set. But it's a little bit different, very structured on our side.
Yes.
I guess this question is more directed at Jane since she was more involved with HR. But I'm a sophomore here at Villanova, and I think part of my biggest struggle right now is figuring out if I should keep myself flexible or if I should have a more like studied depth to my education and experience. So in other words, should I express an interest in liberal arts? Should I, or should I like start being Bloomberg certified, joining every business society here? What's more attractive as someone hiring?
Yeah, I would say it all depends on where you want to take your career. So if you know you see yourself in an investments position, right, as a trader, getting Bloomberg certified would be a good step. If you're still figuring that out and you just want to make yourself stand out as a candidate, I would say things we look for are leadership involvement. So being a leader in some capacity, especially for the freshmen and sophomores in the room, and even the juniors, get involved in something early in your college career and stick with it. Pick something you're passionate about, continue with it, move on to a leadership role. Those are things that stand out, aside from obviously the academics and how you perform. Other things that really stand out are what leadership activities or what sort of leadership have you demonstrated through some of your involvement while you've been at school. And if you know you want to be in something that's fairly niche, I would say get involved in as many of those things as you can, right? Student managed funds, I'm sure there's many others that are new since I've graduated, if that aligns with your career path. But if you're still kind of deciding what to pursue, I would say just the leadership is something that stands out that we look for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do a lot of recruiting for the firm, and you see a lot of resumes that come across, and the people that are involved in like tons of different societies, organizations, that's I don't think that's as impressive as if you just have a couple that you're actively involved in and you take the leadership roles like Jane's saying. That to me it stands out a lot more. If you just find a couple that you are passionate about and take leadership active roles in those organizations or societies, that's a lot more impressive, I think.
And I would say if there's something you love, if there's something in liberal arts that you love, pursue it. You only get one chance to go through college, and do what you love and add it, maybe it's something that supplements your business background and your business degree. So that is not going to hold you back from getting the job you want. I mean, I think the interview's where you sell yourself, right? So people form an impression, and the resume helps you get there, but if there's something you really want to pursue, do it.
If I could ask a follow-up.
Sure.
I haven't really got a perfect image of your career path yet, but have any of you had an experience where you went into like your first job, I guess, and you discovered like, this isn't what I was thinking it would be, and then how forgiving was that environment? How easy was it to say like, actually I think this job, this position might suit me better?
We've had pretty good experiences so far.
Yeah.
Right? Is that?
Yeah, I would say the only thing I would say is that if you're at a huge company, that's one of the better things about being involved in big companies. You have more. You know, if you're in a smaller company, you might not have as many flexible options to jump around to a different group. I had that experience, but it was in one of my rotations, so I knew there was a 6-month cap on it, and particularly like the people that led the group. But it was, it was easy to jump into another group if you're in a big company.
Yeah, I would echo that. There's the biggest disservice I've seen people do to themselves is give their 2 weeks and quit the firm without actually raising their hand and saying I wasn't happy with what I was doing, because we have so many different things that we offer as far as opportunities go at the firm. But when I started at the firm, I came in as an intern and a new hire as well in our investment management practice, and I knew very quickly that was not really what I was interested in doing. I wanted to be much more in the real estate focused practice and really have a real estate portfolio, whether it was office or hotel properties. I was much more interested in that, and I raised my hand. I said, listen, I'm just not that interested in what I'm on right now and what I'm assigned to. Is there a way that I can get some exposure to real estate clients? And that was probably a couple weeks into the firm, and I raised my hand and they said, yeah, why don't you try this out? Tried it out, and I've been on it ever since, and I've loved every day since. But if you don't talk to anybody and if you don't voice your concerns or thoughts, nobody's ever going to know if you're happy or not. So I get really upset when I see people shorten their careers at PwC, for example, just because they weren't happy with the engagement they were on or the people that they were working with, where they could have just said, hey, listen, I'm not particularly happy with what I'm doing right now. Is there something else I can get exposure to? Because there are thousands of opportunities to make a move. Mm-hmm. So.
And you can drive that on your own through your networks as well. So when I was at Villanova, I was a finance major, econ minor. Through my summer internship, I learned that there was this leadership track that I wasn't familiar with prior to joining Vanguard, that you could actually go somewhere, have a business background, and be in a leadership position after a year. So that was really something that really piqued my interest. So I would say I didn't end up going the route I thought I was going to go down, which was more of the corporate finance path. And then for me, once I went through the program, I had a fantastic manager when I went through the rotational program myself, and kind of said, your job is the job I want. I really like coaching, developing, and mentoring others. And for me, and I like the recruiting aspect. It's what I'm most passionate about, get my energy from it. So I made the switch to HR through my network. So I kept in contact with the senior manager of the leadership development group at Vanguard. We met quarterly for coffee. He knew my interests, and when the opportunity became available, I moved to that role.
Yes. I guess this is more for David, but I guess it's directed towards anybody. But when you say that doors have opened for you within your career, have you ever been hesitant because you don't have the background, or do you feel that the training, like knowing that there's training available, you've kind of taken that opportunity?
Yeah, I've never really been hesitant, but all my moves have been within the CFO umbrella. So, within CFO, there's a lot of thousands of employees that roll up to the CFO of the firm. So I've always done what we call at the company business unit finance. So I've supported a specific trading desk or a specific, like IBK, for example, or specific. But like I said, there's audit teams, there's corporate reporting teams that face off with the government bodies. There's a whole host of other organizations that roll up to the CFO. So I've always kind of made moves within that big umbrella. So I've always had I've kind of had the fundamentals jumping around different groups. So I've never really been hesitant from that perspective. And that's the good thing about how big the company is. I've always been within CFO, and there's still been a ton of opportunities within there. So
can't be hesitant. So if you're hesitant, somebody else is going to take your opportunity from you, and that's just the way it is. And that's not that the business world is scary. That's just the way it is out there. But I would say, when you have opportunities that come at you, and maybe you are kind of hesitant, you want to have the confidence, right? Because like I kind of mentioned this earlier too, you're going to be surprised at what you're actually capable of when put in a position that forces you to challenge yourself. And I've been given opportunities, and you're given a lot of responsibility at a young age, especially in public accounting. I'm 29 and going to board meetings and presenting to board members. That's an intimidating environment sometimes, just because you're 25, 30 years less experienced than the people that you're presenting to. But you just have to have the confidence to go out there and do it. And I think you will really step to the plate when you're asked to do so. At least that's my experience through my career. Good question, though.
Yeah, and along that line, as you said, at a young age, relatively young, what surprised me in public, and again, that was my experience, like I'm 24, I'm like running a job here. You know, like all these people they're asking me the questions, and I've got to have the thing organized, and I got to communicate with the partner, and I don't think I thought about that when I was studying accounting, that like I'm being managing, even if it's a small team, I'm still managing something at age 24. And I think, again, the soft skills have been alluded to a number of times, being organized, managing, and dealing with reporting in sometimes tough situations, like when you're doubling budget or something. There's some difficult things that you might have to deal with like that.
It's just amazing some of the interactions you get at a very young stage of your career with people who are coming to you that have been working for 15, 20 years. They're coming to you asking for advice. They're coming to you asking for help in a transaction, or how do we account for this particular issue, whatever it may be. And you're just a few years into your career. But that being said, in those situations, I have always felt very prepared. And you learn so much, and you don't even actually realize that when you're starting your career. So it's been pretty cool. It's been a pretty cool experience.
Okay.
This is towards any of the people in the panel, but how do you make a horizontal movement within a company without killing off relationships in your prior department, or how do you leave in good faith or without a target on their back, so to say?
Me personally, I would always say talk to your direct manager first. You never want to have them hear it not from you, unless you work for someone who's just a bad person or something like that. Hopefully they're approachable. They'll understand. If you go explain to somebody that it's getting a little stale in this job, but that's step number one. Don't ever. You could maybe put feelers out there, but don't have anything concrete until you talk to your direct manager, because you're like anything else. You're dealing with people. There's cliques in high school. There's cliques in college. There's still cliques in the professional world. There's still people. They just grow up. They don't really change that much. So people get upset. People get upset in companies the same way people get upset in college. So don't always be as honest as you can with that direct manager. If you're working for a bad person, sometimes you just gotta escape. But that's kind of rare case.
So I would say my experience has been a little bit different. So lateral moves are really, really highly encouraged. So I've never really heard of anyone. Usually it's as you hit 2 years in your current job, your manager is coming to you talking about, so what's the next skill set you want to build? What are you looking to? What will complement your existing experience? Because we really believe from the top down, if you want to continue to move up in the organization, being well-rounded, and our most senior leaders have had, some of the senior staff, they've run IT and then gone to run our retail business and then gone to run our investment business. That's an actual example, right? So I would say lateral moves are highly encouraged, and it is about making sure you have the discussion so it doesn't come out of thin air. But if you're talking to your manager about it and talking about what you want that next experience to look like, I think it's something that is rotations and mobility across the organization is highly, highly encouraged.
I would echo that 100%. Lateral moves are so common in the public accounting industry, I would say. And it comes down a lot to communication like these guys are talking about. But it also comes down to making sure you're surrounded by people who support you. So I've had plenty of those discussions. And most times, and I'll use a couple of examples here, but a lot of times when people are looking to make a move, the manager or whoever's in charge of them is supporting them 100%. Like, wow, that's a great move for you, actually. Even though knowing that it's going to be a struggle for them because they're going to lose a good individual, somebody that worked hard for them. And that's happened to me plenty of times where I've been approached and they said, look, I want to make a move to this other group because I want to get that exposure. And I say, that's a great idea. It's going to suck losing you right now, but it's going to be really good for you in your career, and that's what matters. And I've never felt as supported as I have in my career as far as the moves that I'm making. Somebody is there to say, I think that's a really good move for you. Or on the other side, hey, I don't think that's a good move for you, and this is why I don't think it's a good move for you. And you really listen to that and take that in. But I've seen people, in our career, and I think you alluded to it earlier over there, that a lot of people turn over in public accounting. They come in, they get their experience, and they go out into the industry. And I've seen experiences or heard from other people who've had the experiences. They've sat with partners and said, hey, look, I'm looking to make a move, and I think I'm going to accept this offer from this other company. And the partners are so supportive. They're like, I think that's a good opportunity. Why don't I try and help you find a better opportunity? And that's the environment, not like, what, you're quitting? Like, get out of my office. It's not like that. It's, what can I do to help you find an even better position? Because I don't think that that's a good enough position for your skill set. I think you're more qualified, or I think you've done a better job, and your performance levels are much higher than going into that role. Why don't I make a couple calls, because it's all about connections, and the people that they've networked with and said, hey, I think I can find you a better position. And people have actually not taken that offer, taken another offer that a partner would say, hey, I think this is a better opportunity for you. So it's a lot of support out there. You're not going to run into many situations where somebody's pissed off at you because you want to make a move.
Well, I think we've approached the end of our time, and I want to thank you guys for asking great questions, but especially to thank our panelists.